Well, tubers, tubettes, and wedding crashers. Change it up a little. Yesterday, I'm happy to announce, baby May and myself became husband and wife. Now, I've got a couple of disclosures to tell right up front. Number one, this is going to be a long video, or longer than usual. And if you want to join in with me and take the full car ride and listen to the story from start to finish, cool. But if at any point in time you just feel like you got to pull the car over and jump out, I don't blame you. You've probably got better things to do. And the second thing is, this is not at all the video that I had foreseen me posting tonight. Today's Saturday, the day after the wedding. And during the wedding, we had all kinds of cameras going and microphones, and the ceremony was taped, and it had its moments, which were really funny and really poignant, and I felt very, I don't know, it had a lot of emotion attached to it. And we had the signing and the photos with the mayor, and we had a great little wedding video. It's kind of like a home movie. And then we had the dinner afterwards with just the family. By the way, this is May and I's best kept secret ever. No one knew this was going to happen up until it actually did happen. I shouldn't say no one. There were a few people that were under house arrest and not allowed to say anything to anybody. We wanted to keep it private. We wanted to keep it small, and we wanted to keep it within family. So, and we managed to pull that off. One of our greatest achievements. And it's going to be a totally different video than what I had planned to post, which was the aforementioned ceremony. The reason for that is because within the last 72 hours, I have just been flooded inside of this dilapidated hard drive that kind of works every now and then between my ears with a lot of information and a lot of emotional information. And it is all positive emotional information. And it's really important to me, being the selfish person that I am, since this channel really is a video diary of my life, that I get this on tape and I put it out there before I forget the details. And as I just stated, if you want to come along for the ride, cool. The other video, as far as the ceremony and all that, that'll come out in the future. I don't know how we're going to do this, because the last thing I want to do is waterboard you guys with, one wedding video after another. How much can you poor people take? So maybe we'll toss it up on May's channel. But it's going to take a long time, or longer really, because there's so many components to it. And there are a number of different levels of, especially emotions, and some logic that I want to explain. And I'm going to do my very, very best to be as precise and as concise in connecting the dots for you, so you'll understand the logical process and thinking that I had, and then the emotional floodgates that opened just recently in my life. New information that came in, and I just feel like I need to share it, at least with myself. So, let's start with the beginning. When I was single and I would date women, I would be with them for a certain period of time, and I would ask myself a question after I'd been with them for a week or two or whatever, fairly little longer than a couple of days. And I would look at them, and I felt that I knew them to some degree, and I would ask myself one question. And I would look at her and I would say, Paulie boy, do you see yourself being with this woman for the rest of your life? And every time the answer was no. And so that was a signal to me to sort of start to end the relationship. If it had no future, why continue it? No matter what other qualities they had that I liked or enjoyed. And I'm happy to say that there was never any bad blood when we did part ways. I still am proud of the fact that I still call all those people friends, and we're amicable with each other. And then along the way, I met May. And May and I dated for about 6 months. And then after that, after we straightened out a few issues that we had to get on the same page with, she moved in with me. And after a few months of living with me, I asked myself the same question. In less than a year of being with her, I looked at her sitting at the edge of the couch. She was just minding her own business, doing whatever she was doing. And I said, well, Paulie boy, do you see yourself living with this woman, solely her, for the rest of your life? And the answer was, yeah, I do. And been with her ever since. Now, May let me know within the first year also that it was her desire to be with me, as she put it, forever. But never once did she come out and say, let's get married. I knew May is a total girly girl. She hasn't got an ounce of masculinity in her. And she's traditional. And she's old-fashioned. And she's from the province. And she believes in the respective roles. And it's always been her fantasy, if I can project that she was proposed to by someone, that the man asked her to marry her. It was not her station in life to do that. And so she patiently waited for that question to get popped. Now, in the years that I've been doing YouTube with May, I have had countless comments from people that have said, hey man, you guys get along so well and you're so compatible. We've seen you for 3 years now. We know it's the real deal. You're not faking it. Why don't you just marry the girl? Solid question. And people would ask May that question, and her reply was always the same: up to God. And I had a little more pragmatic attitude. And the reason that I put it off for so long was not because I was afraid of getting married to May. I honestly thought that it would be unfair to marry May. What's the logic behind that, you ask? Okay, fair enough question. Well, it's kind of twofold. Number one is I would benefit and May would not. So since I care for May so much, I felt that it would actually be detrimental for her to be married to me. The long game that I was trying to play when I decided that she was the one is I really, since I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her, I tried to look at, well, what's the rest of our life going to look like? And over time, there's going to be a point where both myself, me first, of course, and her, we're physically and mentally and what you call it, however you want to put it, we're going to digress. And I also wanted to make sure that May had a solid financial future. Yes, I set her up with YouTube so she can earn her own, but that can come and go with the wind. YouTube can stop tomorrow. There's nothing there. That's certain. So my thinking after researching it was the best thing for us to do in our later years would be to go to America. And if we go to America, I knew that once I got her across the border, that we could get her a Social Security number relatively quickly in my research. I think after 3 years, she would get a green card. And then 5 years in, she would qualify. If we stayed there 5 consecutive years, she would qualify to receive my benefits. I forgot to mention we would get married while we were there prior to all that. So once we arrived, we would get there, we would get married. She would do her 3 years. She would get her green card, I believe it's called, and then dual citizenship. And in 5 years, she would then qualify for my benefits so that she would always have the perpetual income from my Social Security. And I felt that was the best way to set May up. What's that got to do with marrying her? Well, in my research, it was made clear to me that it is a lot less complicated, for some stupid reason, to get May over there, or any other Filipina for that matter, on a fiancé visa. In other words, you're not married yet. I go over there, she goes over there, we go over there together. We have to go to Manila. I won't get into all the details of what you got to do. It's a big hoo-ha. But let's just say that it happens. Generally, that takes 1 to 3 years. And for some psycho reason, that if you're married and want to take your Filipina to America, it's a more complex process. It's harder to do, which makes zero sense to me. I mean, if I'm married to her and I've been living with her for X amount of years, it seems to me like that's much more of a solid guarantee that she's going to be taken care of, that she's going to have a place to stay. She's not going to be a burden on society. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, we over here in the Philippines that want to also take their Filipinas, girlfriends, wives, fiancés, whatever they may be, we just flip on the news, and it's kind of like the running joke that all we really should do is fly them into Mexico and let them go across the Rio Grande or whatever it is to the southern border of Texas, and the next thing you know, they're granted asylum, and they get a bus ticket or a plane ticket and a hotel room and a court date that they never have to show up for. Well, we're not going to do that. But I am going to get a little off topic, and I must say, I must make this statement while I've got your attention this far, is that the laws in America, I love America, it's my home country, I'm a patriot, I understand, their laws are draconian as far as trying to legally bring somebody into the country. I believe America is a melting pot. I think all souls should be welcome, and as long as they're not posing a danger. And why they don't streamline it so that we can legally immigrate people into the society is beyond me. But I'm not in charge, so here we are. All right, so fiancé visa. Well, I talked to a friend of mine, and he is married to a Filipina. He had to go home when he became ill, and he had to have at least 2 years worth of treatment, and left his wife and child here. I can't remember if it's a son or a daughter. And guess what? I made a phone call to him because I really did want to get married to May for a number of reasons. And he said, you know what? He asked me a question. He said, Paul, how long do you think it'll be if you got married tomorrow that you would actually make that trip to America? And I said, well, minimum 5 years, maybe more. And he said, well, he said, I'm married and she's got a kid, and it was a lot of heartache, and it was a lot of bureaucracy, and we had a lot of false starts, and we had a lot of failures, and we had a lot of disappointments, and it wasn't cheap. And we went through X amount of attorneys to try to make it happen, but you know what? They're here with me right now. We did make it happen. So it is possible. And I thought, you know what? That's sound advice, because it's unfair for me to deny May one of her lifelong dreams, and that is to be married. And it's unfair to me to continue living as an unmarried man to the woman that I love because of some law that exists in America. And maybe we'll never make it over the border. I hope so, because I do want to set up for her future. So once we had that conversation and once I made that decision, back in December, it's February right now, a year ago, December, so 14 months ago, I asked May if she would like to be my wife, and she accepted. And I explained to her, I said, okay, well, the first thing we need to do is get engaged. And she didn't know what that meant. She just thought you got married. She had never heard of an engagement. My simple Province girl, God love her. So I explained to her what an engagement was. And she said, oh, okay, and we'll do that. And I said, let's go shopping for rings. You get a diamond ring, and then after you get married, you get what's called a wedding band. She didn't know any of this. And I explained to her the process. So we went out, and we went shopping for an engagement ring. And called a few places, who's got the best deals, where can you get the best, bang for your buck and all that good stuff. And we got a name of a couple of places. And we went into one place that was really quite much more reasonable than others, like at the mall. And there was a nice sized real diamond on a band. And I thought it was a beautiful ring, and May thought it was a beautiful ring. And it was not huge, but it was a good sized diamond. And I told May, I said, and May was looking at the price tag, and I said, stop looking at the price tag. Okay, there's no holds on this. I'm willing to ink up for this. I'll pay the freight on this. This is a big deal. So I'm perfectly cool with that. It won't change my lifestyle or yours. Go ahead and get a nice ring. And she kept looking at it and looking at the size of it and putting it on her finger and then looking at the price tag, which I kept telling her to quit doing. And she said, well, can we just keep looking? And I said, yeah, girlfriend, it's your call. Whatever you want. You want a bigger one? Okay. You want something different color, different shape, different whatever, different cut? That's okay. We'll keep shopping. So what does she do? She calls her sister, who works at a pawn shop, and managed to find the world's smallest cubic zirconian stone, if you want to call it that, this little tiny band that was a fraction of the cost. And to this day, I can barely see the stone that's on this ring. And she said, that's the one I want. And I said, May, I told you, don't worry about the money. It's really not an issue. I can make it happen. And she said, I know. She said, but this is the one I want. And I said, why do you want this ring? She said, well, one, the price. I like the price on this one a lot better. And I said, okay, well, forget about the price. What if they were both priced the same? Which one would you want? I said, this one. I said, the little one. Yeah. Why? She says, because it reflects me. It's small, it's simple, and it doesn't scream, and I'm not showing off. That's the last thing I want to do. She said, the most important thing to me about this ring, after you explained to me that we get engaged and then after that we get married, is the meaning behind the ring. And that you and I are set up to get married soon in the future. That's all that I care about. I don't want to show off to people. I don't want to draw attention to myself. I want it to be more, I'm simple. I'm a province girl. And I'm never going to be anything but that. So this is the ring that reflects me. I said, okay, you got it. So we bought this little ring for a fraction of the cost, and she's happy as can be with it. That was in December. Now I'm forward thinking. I start researching the marriage grind that you have to go through here in the Philippines. It ain't Vegas where you can go through a drive-through after going to the licensing bureau and then get divorced the next day. It ain't that. It is months of mind-bending brain damage. I'm not going to get into it. That, too, is another video. Funny as hell. And also, I think if I do that video, it'll be very informative for people that are thinking about doing what we just did, and that's get married. Plus, you get the bonus of being able to laugh at my brain damage experience and the torture that I was put through by the bureaucracy here in the Philippines and the way May was trying to handle me through the whole thing. Okay, so we're not going to go there. So in March, I went back to America to see my father, my kids, and friends and family and all that. And I had another mission, and that was to ask my ex-wife for a solid. And God bless her, we're still friends. You know, we still chat. We have kids together. And so she got me a copy, which one thing I didn't bring with me when I came over here, of our divorce decree. Took the woman 4 hours to dig it out of her storage shed, but God bless her, she went in, dug it out, and gave it to me. So, thumbs up, ex-wife. And I came home proudly with that because I knew that would be the one sticking point. I had to have that one that was notarized, stamped, and official. Just something that I could print off the internet wouldn't work. That had to be the one. So I had that. I didn't even tell May about it. Didn't tell anybody else about it. I just knew that I had it. So that was back in March. We took a couple of months. We both had other things going on. We took a trip to Thailand. We kind of did some jicky-jacky stuff. And then when we got back from that, we started getting serious about this marriage deal. And like I said, I'm not going to go through it on this video, but that process was not fun. It wasn't pretty, and I'll put that out someday in the future. However, within the last 72 months, May and I have had an awful lot of conversations because we were getting closer and closer to the proverbial bottom line, getting the final paperwork done. And I shared with May that about her father. I had some questions about her father. And I said, because he's been ill lately, and she's been very concerned. He's been diagnosed with an enlarged heart, kidney issues, type 2 diabetes. He's got a lot of dark circles on his face. He's having a hard time moving his hip. All these things have been hitting him, so she's been very concerned about her father. And I was kind of being kind of snarky, and I said, I don't know why you're so concerned about your dad. And she's puzzled, why? And I said, well, when you were 15, he shipped you off to Manila. And I always thought that was kind of callous of him. I mean, he had this brood of kids, and out of the kids, you were the one that got picked to go with the auntie and go work as a housekeeper, caretaker for over 10 years. You didn't keep any real money for yourself except a few pesos just to get by, buy some chewing gum for yourself, and you shipped the rest of it home for the rest of the family. And in the 4 years I've known May, I've never seen her cry. I know she's cried, but it's always been in private. And what about, I don't know, but I know that she's been sad, and I know that she goes off privately and does that. She doesn't bring her drama into my world, or at least she tries to eliminate that from my circle. And I do the same for her. When I'm in a foul mood, I do my best just to separate from her till I get over it. So we were talking about her father, and she started to weep openly in front of me. And here I was thinking her father was this callous kind of villain, when she shared with me that her father had told her that it was killing him to send her off like that. And there wasn't a day that went by that he didn't feel tormented inside, that he had been a failure in his mind. He was a poor dirt farmer. He was uneducated. He pulled her out of third grade. She never learned to write English or read English. She can read and write in the sign like a champ, just like you and I can read and write in English, but she missed that. And he knows that he shortchanged her, but it was one of those necessities. And he said that, every day he prayed that when she got back, his only wish, his only dream was that his daughter would have a better life. And when I heard that, it brought back a flood of memories of when my first son was born. And I remember he wasn't 2 minutes old. He had just pulled in his first 2 gasps of oxygen for the first time and was holding onto my finger. And I looked at him, and the minute I met my son, everything about me went out the window. There wasn't any more selfish left. It was everything was immediately for him. And I think a lot of guys can relate to that. And the first thing that the parental instinct or the fatherly instinct feels for any of our children is what we wish for them is for a better life, for it to be easier for them than it was for us. When I looked at my son, I said, man, I expect great things from you. I'm praying that you're the first one in our family to go to college, and I want you to do this, and I want you to do that, and I want to do everything I can to make that possible. Unfortunately, that wasn't the result, but the feeling was there. Jimmy, May's father, when he looked at his daughter, May, when she was born, had the exact same feeling, and he didn't get that result. Now, if we come full circle, May's back. She's been with me. He shared with May, which she just recently shared with me within the last 72 hours, which is the emotional input that I've been getting that's been so positive and so eye-opening, and of how wrong I was in some of my assumptions, at how relieved he feels that I came into the picture and that I've been the kind of guy that I've been to May. He's never once asked me for any help. He's too humble. The family's never asked me for any help financially. Have I helped them? Yeah, when I felt it was necessary. But usually it's May that even keeps that off the table. And she sometimes secretly takes money out of the bank and gives it to them just so they can have protein instead of carbohydrates. And recently her father had to go to the hospital. I think I mentioned that he had some medical conditions. If I'm repeating myself, I'm sorry. But he's got an enlarged heart, diabetes, big circles under his eyes, can barely move his hip. And Jimmy, her father, also had another dream. And it wasn't to own a house, and it wasn't to own a boat, or to even own a business, or a car, or a motorbike, because he knew all those things were never going to be within reach. Not with all the kids he had, his lack of education, and his station in life, if you will. May shared with me that one of his biggest dreams was to sit in a brand new car. And so May and I, last month, bought a brand new car. And Jimmy had an opportunity, which May filmed, to sit for the first time. He just didn't want to drive in it. He just wanted to sit in it, in a brand new car. And it was hard getting his leg in, but we got him in, and then we got him buckled up. And even though he said he didn't want to, we went for a drive. And we went cruising through Valencia down to a restaurant and thoroughly enjoyed it. And when we got married and we were back in the car driving to the restaurant, I didn't see it because I was keeping my eye on the road. It's what you have to do here. I have to be focused when I drive. May saw it. Her father was crying. And now May had just shed a tear in front of me a few days before and expressed about her father. And now her father was crying on the way to dinner. And they were talking of Visayan. I didn't understand a word of it. And so we all went to dinner. I didn't see him cry, but May did. And they were chatting the whole time that this was going on. After dinner, dropped everybody off, gave them a ride home, talked to May, and she said, "Did you see my father weeping while you were driving to the restaurant?" I said, "No, I didn't see it." She goes, "Did you hear us talking?" I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Why was he crying?" And she said, every day he had prayed to God that his daughter, May, would have a better life than him. And he was weeping tears of joy that after we consummated our marriage and exchanged the rings and became husband and wife, that weight that he had felt, that guilt that he had felt when his back was against the wall and he had to push her out of the house to earn money, that dissipated. And he felt so relieved, and he felt that God had answered his prayer, that his daughter was finally taken care of. So I don't have a moral to the story. I just know that May and I got married, and she is going to better my life. I'm going to do my damnedest to better hers. And Jimmy got his wish fulfilled that I think is every father's dream. If that isn't a successful wedding story. I don't know what is. I'll see you in the next video.